Good day, grade 9. This is Miss Cruz to teach you about genetic cross. Before we proceed with the lesson proper, I have here a simple activity. I will be giving you jumbled letters. Now I want you to arrange the following letters to create or to form a word which is related with our previous topic. This activity will serve as our review. We have here the first jumbled letters. Now, can you guess what word is being formed when you arrange the following letters? The word will be allele. Remember that allele is the variation of gene or the alternative forms of gene. We have two types of allele. We have dominant allele and recessive allele. A dominant allele represents the dominant trait and can be written in uppercase letter. On the other hand, a recessive allele represents the recessive trait and can be written in lowercase letter. Now, let's proceed with the next jumbled letters. The what word is being formed with these jumbled letters? We have the trait. What is a trait? A trait refers to the physical attribute of a person that can be inherited from the parent. For example, we have the eye color, the hair color, and the skin tone. Moving forward, let's have the next jumbled letters. What word is being formed using these letters? We have the word dominant. So what do we mean by dominant? Dominant allele represent the dominant trait or the prominent trait and can be written in uppercase letter. Next, we have this set of jumbled letters. Now what word is being formed? We have the word recessive. What do you mean by recessive? When we say recessive allele, this is the gene that shows up less often in a cross. It represents the recessive trait and can be written in lowercase letter. How about this set of jumbled letters? What is the word formed with these letters? We have genotype. What do we mean by genotype? Again, a genotype is the allele combination for a trait. It is represented by two letters. Moving forward, we have the next set of jumbled letters. And the word formed with these letters is homozygous. Homozygous is the first type of genotype. When we say homozygous, meaning to say we have two the same alleles. So it can be written with two capital letters or two lowercase letters. Let's proceed. Now what word is being formed using these letters? We have heterozygous. So what do we mean by heterozygous? Heterozygous is the second type of genotype. When we say heterozygous, it is also known as hybrid and can be written with two letters, with one uppercase letter and one lowercase letter. So it is a combination of one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Lastly, we have this set of letters. Now, what word is being formed? Very good, we have phenotype. When we say phenotype, it refers to the traits or the characteristic that can be expressed by interpreting the genotype. So the topic for today is about genetic cross. What is a genetic cross? A genetic cross determines the characteristic of the offspring. It made use of a tool known as the Punnett square to solve a cross between the genotype of two parents, like in our example, where parent 1 have a heterozygous genotype. So when we say heterozygous genotype, it have a dominant allele and a recessive allele. On the other hand, parent 2 have a homozygous recessive genotype, wherein the genotype include two lowercase letters or two recessive alleles. What is a Punnett square? A Punnett square is a graphical representation of the possible genotypes of an offspring, like the illustration below. So as you can see, we used this example in our previous slide. We have the genotype of the parent one, which is a heterozygous genotype, and we have the genotype of parent 2, which is a homozygous recessive genotype. So the genotype of parent 1 and genotype of parent 2 is crossed or matched together, recombined together inside the Punnett square. So each box represents the possible genotypes of the offspring of parent 1 and parent 2. Proceeding, let us discuss about the two types of genetic cross. The first type of genetic cross is known as monohybrid cross. The prefix mono implies one. In this genetic cross, it only involves one trait. For example, we have the pod color. The second type of genetic cross is known as the dihybrid cross. The prefix di implies two. This genetic cross involves two traits. For example, the genetic cross have a given pod color and at the same time plant height. In this chapter, we will focus on the monohybrid cross. Again, when we say monohybrid cross, it involves only one trait. To further understand monohybrid cross, let's discuss the step by citing our first problem. Let me read you the problem. Dimples are dominant over no dimples. A father is heterozygous for dimples and a mother is heterozygous for dimples. What are the chances that their child will have a dimples? So based on the stem of this passage, we are looking about the chance that a couple who have both heterozygous genotype will have the probability that their offspring will have dimples. We are looking about the chances that their child will have dimples. So here is the first step in monohybrid cross. The first thing that you need to do is to assign a letter to represent each alleles. So step 1, choose a letter to represent a trait. So for this given, we will be using the uppercase letter D and lowercase letter d. We will assign the uppercase letter D to represent the dominant allele or the dominant trait. On the other hand, we will assign the lowercase letter d or the recessive allele to represent the recessive trait, which is no dimples. So let's read the passage again. Dimples are dominant over no dimples. A father is heterozygous for dimples, and a mother is also heterozygous for dimples, meaning to say both the mother and father have the same genotype, which is heterozygous for dimples. Now, step 2. Write the genotype of the parents. Remember that each parent has two alleles. Where are we going to find the genotype of the parents? So we are going to reread or read back the passage. Based on the passage, the father have a heterozygous genotype as well as the mother. Again, when we say genotype, we are talking about two letters. So when we say heterozygous, meaning to say two different letters. So in our previous step, we used the allele uppercase letter D to represent dimples, which is a dominant trait, and lowercase letter d to represent no dimples, which is a recessive trait. When we say heterozygous, it is a combination of uppercase letter and lowercase letter. So we will have the following genotype, since both parents have a heterozygous genotype. Step 3. Write the genetic cross. Based on our previous step, the genotype of parent 1 or the father is a heterozygous. cross with the genotype of parent 2 or the mother, which is also a heterozygous genotype. Step number 4. Draw a 2 by 2 Punnett square. Take note that each square is equivalent to 25%. So by adding the 4 boxes, we can get a total sum of 100%. Step 5. Write the alleles of parent 1 on the left side of the Punnett square and the alleles of parent 2 above the Punnett square. After that, we can proceed with the next step, which is step 6. Step 6. Fill up the boxes by matching the allele of parent 1 and parent 2. So we have the allele of parent 1 combined with the allele of parent 2. So the same goes with other boxes. The allele of parent 1 combined with the allele of parent 2. The allele of parent 1 combined with the allele of parent 2. So take note that in writing the genotype, always write the dominant allele first before the recessive allele. Step 7. Determine the genotypic ratio and the phenotypic ratio of a genetic cross. This is the most crucial part because we are going to interpret the result of a Punnett square. Based on our problem number 1, we can get a genotypic ratio 1 homozygous dominant genotype is to 2 heterozygous genotype is to 1 homozygous recessive genotype. It can also be expressed in terms of percentage, but always take in consideration that each box is equivalent to 25%. Therefore, we can have 25% homozygous dominant genotype is to 50%, heterozygous genotype is to 25%, homozygous recessive genotype. How about the phenotypic ratio? We can get the phenotypic ratio by interpreting the genotypic ratio. Always remember that the presence of the dominant allele in a genotype express the dominant trait. So based on our genotypic ratio, we have 1, 2, 3. So the phenotypic ratio will be 3 dimples. And because in our genotypic ratio, we have 1 homozygous recessive genotype, the result of the phenotypic ratio will be 3 dimples is to 1 no dimples. It can also be expressed in percentage. 75% dimples is to 25% no dimples. Going back to the actual question, what is the chance that the parent who have both heterozygous genotype will have an offspring that have dimples? We can get a chance or possibility of 75%. Let's test your comprehension for today's topic by answering the exercise. We have problem number 1. Let me read you the passage. In humans, freckles are dominant over no freckles. A man homozygous dominant for freckles reproduces with a woman who is homozygous recessive for no freckles. What chance does their child have no freckles? Problem number 2. In a pea plants, spherical seeds are dominant to dented seeds. In a genetic cross of two plants that are heterozygous for the seed-shaped trait, what chances that the offspring will have spherical seeds? To find out if you got the correct answer for problem 1 and problem 2, kindly refer to the Google Drive and find the file Keto Correction. Thank you for listening, grade 9. I hope that you learned a lot for today's topic. And just a little reminder, always put in mind that learning is not a torture. It is a difficult process, but yet it will be worth it in the end. And also, you can unlearn and learn at the same time. Just enjoy the road to learning and be passionate about learning.